Welcome to the Unreasonable Life Podcast. This is where we get to redefine what's possible and inspire you to create a life that is extraordinary. I'm Dr. Nona, an entrepreneur and author, quantum leap teacher, and founder of Elevate Club and 1 Week a Month Mastermind, a professional life liver, and your guide to living boldly. Every episode, I'll sit down with an incredible guest who has shattered limits, pursued their biggest dreams, and created lives that others have called impossible. Together, we're going to uncover the stories, the strategies, the lessons that will empower you to live your version of that unreasonable dream life. Because the life that you want isn't unreachable. It just happens to be unreasonable. Let's dive in. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Doc. Do people call you Doc or just Nona?
Nona is fine,
Yeah.
but this is a good question. Actually, a good point of conversation. I just got asked the other day, like, oh, how do you want me to, I'm speaking on a stage somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you want us to introduce you as Dr. Nona or as Nona? And I make it a point to tell everyone, you introduce me as Dr. Nona, and then we can converse as Nona, because I remember being in practice, and especially being a female doctor, people tend to just skip it somehow.
I like it. I'm not a doctor by any means, but people say, how do you want to be introduced? I'm like, introduced as Samantha, but then after that, it's Sam, because we're friends, and we're just talking.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get it. So I respect that. That's good. And you earned that degree.
Yeah, I feel like I make it a point, because oftentimes female, any kind of expertise, we kind of downplay. So I make it a point to be like, no, you do what you need to do.
Absolutely.
Maybe I should have asked you if I should start with Samantha or Sam.
We're good now. Sam's fine.
It's too late.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. This is the podcast about the Unreasonable Life Podcast. And oftentimes when we make unreasonable decisions, when we create unreasonable lives like you have, both in your business, in your personal life, it really starts with a struggle, or at least that's been my experience.
Absolutely.
So I would love to I know you have an unreasonable life. You have a totally unreasonable business. So I'd love to start with the struggle. Like, tell me about your story. Tell everybody about your story. I know a bit about it.
Yes. Well, I married my first husband after only 60 days, and I didn't know anything about narcissism, and I didn't know anything about red flags. Like, I was mid-20s. I didn't know. So fast forward, I married him quickly, had kids quickly, and got divorced quickly. And again, I was naive about divorce. I thought divorce was this simple. And I say this analogy, but it was the God's honest truth. Like, I thought it would be like a Young and the Restless divorce, where I would hand him a trifold blue piece of paper. He would sign it. I would sign it, and we would be done. I had no idea it would involve witnesses and lawyers and days and all the things. And so I was completely blind going through my divorce. And again, I thought, okay, you don't like me, I don't like you, let's just end this. But 4 years drag out, right? And it was this big, huge process. And I was I had a master's degree. I was an educated person, but I've never felt so dumb before in my life when I was going through my divorce. I didn't understand the language. I didn't understand the expectations. I didn't understand the process. So many questions. And anybody I talked to was super expensive to talk to. So I shut down. I shut down through the whole process. I acted like I was fine and I'm fine. My parents were like, you good? I'm like, I'm good. And I was not good. I did not have good coping skills. I did not have the finances to fund it. I didn't have the brain behind it. I knew nothing about it. And as I was going through it, I'm a constant learner. So I'm like, I got to figure this out. I have to learn about this. This seems ridiculous that it should be this hard to get divorced. Like, this is not right. So I went through my divorce, started co-parenting again. I thought co-parenting would be easy. Well, I'm a slow learner with that too. It was not easy. I had my way about me. I wanted to do things together with him. I wanted to share holidays. I wanted to do birthdays. And I was met with resistance every which turn I made. He was just somebody of high conflict that didn't like me. So as I was going through this process, I kept learning about divorce and learning about strategies and getting myself educated while I was a teacher. That was my first job. I was just an educator for kids. And I met my now husband, and he was like, I really think you should educate adults about divorce. And I was like, I have a job, I have insurance, like, this seems crazy, but here we are. I switched it into a job, but my low moment was just being uneducated.
Yeah, hold on before, because you said so many gems, right? And just in that one part of the story, and I don't want
Right.
people to miss it, but first of all, how long did that take? Because it sounds
My
like first
divorce?
you try to do this. Yes. So sounds
My
like,
divorce took 4 full years to get done. We
how
had
long were
8 days over a holiday break that we went to trial. We had 43 witnesses, 3 to 4 different attorneys, 5 judges over those 4 years. Like, we both spent 6 figures. It was just all to get 50-50, which is what we had been doing the whole time through the process. So we
you?
were doing 50-50, went to court after finally 4 years and got told we were doing 50-50. It was a gut punch. And that's
Mm,
when I realized something's not right here. Like,
yeah.
this doesn't seem, I spent all that money to just do what I'm already doing. Something
Mhm.
needs to change,
And
something
how
needs to
long were
change.
you married for?
4 years. So my divorce took as long as my, my marriage. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And I've been, in that situation. My kids were 1 and 3 when I started the process. They're now 20 and 18. So I've gone through a couple decades with this man and with this journey and with co-parenting and court systems and everything. So I've really experienced all of it. But yeah, it took me a long time to get divorced. And I was in court another 4 years after that because my parenting plan was horrible, which is what created my business.
Okay. So take me to the moment where you're like, I'm a teacher, I'm done. I'm assuming, were you done with divorce at that time? And then you
Yes.
go, okay,
Yeah. No,
what
yeah.
was it that got you to go teacher to, maybe there is something else I got to be doing?
Well, it's very strange because we were kind of going through a rough patch. I had 2 more kids with my now husband. And so we were struggling paycheck to paycheck. And the teaching job just wasn't quite covering all the extracurriculars that my bigs were in. And we had these 2 new babies and we were house poor because we bought a big house and we shouldn't have. Mistake after mistake, right? So we were like, okay, we're going to sell a pickup truck to pay off all of our debt. And at least we'll be like eyes above water with finance and we'll be okay. And I came across somebody online who was teaching about how to start a business. And I was like, it's $500. I don't know if we should do it. We scrounged, it took 3 days to scrounge up $500. We sold stuff on Marketplace and I paid the $500. And I took the class thinking that I would make a business out of an MLM product that I enjoyed. And as I'm going through this class, I'm like, I could use this same information to start a divorce coaching job.
Mhm.
Like, I could use the same methodology to teach people better, to teach people how not to make the mistakes I made. And so it was just that being the lowest of low, and we had to figure out how to make more money because we were both on a salary job. We were not hourly. So we were going to make what we were going to make, and it was not enough to live. And so when we spent that $500 on me to learn about building a business on the side as a side job, it just kind of evolved into what it is today. Slowly. I mean, I took a lot of pivots and a lot of turns and a lot of jumps to get where I am today, but it all started with knowing that we were at a rock bottom, low income, and we were struggling. And when we sold that pickup truck, we were humiliated. We went down from 2 cars to 1. Our whole neighborhood knew it. Everybody was like, what happened? What's going on? Are you getting a new one? And we're like, no, we're using that money to pay to live, so that was our rock bottom moment for sure.
Yeah. So, that's pretty scary. It's pretty
Yeah.
scary to, like, now we have to sell the truck and then spend $500 at the same, like, around the same time or around the same kind of phase of
Yes.
life,
Mhm.
right? It
And
sounds
it was
like.
a lot of pressure. It was a lot of pressure to know that we spent that only $500 that we had to scrounge up, and I had to make something. I at least had to earn my money back, but
Yeah.
I needed to create something to get it to take off so we could get out of this drowning that we were every month. We'd get our head above water and then we'd start drowning again, head above and we'd drown again. And so I knew, out of the 2 of us, I was the one that could do a side business. I had
Mhm.
that spirit about me, I had that instinct, and I had that mama bear. These are all 4 my kids, and I am not. This ship is not sinking because of me.
Yes.
So I really had to step up.
And in those moments, it sounds like your husband was really supportive, but did you have
Oh,
other people that were either was
no,
supportive?
he was. I think my husband was more supportive of me than I was. I think he was like, Sam, you can do this. Like, you're a good storyteller and people listen to you and you love to be center of attention. You can organize. And he was like, all of your characteristics scream that you can coach people. I mean, I'd coached sports my whole life. I'd played sports and coached sports for other people. So it was like, it was just changing the material. It was still the
Mhm.
same, ideologies. It was just changing. Like, instead of coaching basketball, I'm coaching about divorce.
Yeah.
So, and it was really quick. But yeah, now, I will say my dad was one of the people that really judged me for quitting my teaching job. He was really like, I cannot believe, because he's a baby boomer, right? He was like, I
Sure.
cannot believe you quit a salary job with insurance, with retirement, all these. And when you say it like that, you're like, it did sound crazy,
Yes.
it did sound crazy. But I knew that once I bought that class, I was like, I can do this. So I quit my teaching job. So now we're on one income, one vehicle. I quit my teaching job to be like, let's go about this coaching job. And I knew I'm the kind of person, like, procrastination is my like energy. So I knew, like, okay, we've waited till the last minute to really get this going. We got to get it going. And it just, it took off. It was what I was supposed to do.
It's interesting. I find that not just any entrepreneurial story, but any kind of a quantum leap that happens, it almost every single time, and I'm learning this over and over again, there is usually a character or many characters that are against. They're actually singing the song that, this not only is this the wrong thing, but it's the most wrong thing that you could be doing right now. Look at all
Yes.
the safety that you have over here.
Yeah.
I can remember my my dad's always been supportive. Actually, he lives with me now, but even when I got divorced, when I told him that, when I gave him the news to,
Yeah.
I sat down with my ex-husband
Yes.
and we were like, we're getting divorced. And my dad was so disappointed. And later I had to have a conversation. I didn't talk to him. It was the first time, and probably since I was a teenager, I hadn't talked to my dad for days.
Yeah.
Until I kind of sat him down. And then funny story, I've never shared this anywhere, but funny story, then my parents were in not the healthiest relationship. And so after I got divorced and after he got to experience life like through me, if you would, then he ended up getting divorced and now he lives with me. And so
Yeah.
he's the person, the one character who was like against, don't do this, don't, what are you doing
Yes.
to your children, and whatever the case is. And the same character turns around and turns really his life around. He'd been with my mom for probably, I don't know, I'm 43 now, maybe 45 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly what my dad did. There was a lot of resistance and a lot of like, you're going to regret this. You had a good paying job, you're making it so much harder on yourself. And now, he brags about my business and he understands the life that I've been able to give to my children and my husband. But it took a long time for that baby boomer to really wrap his head around, you're going to go chance and do this all on your own. And however hard you work is what you're going to get. Well, what if people don't come? What if people don't buy into it? What if, what if? And I didn't think like that. I just knew. I'm like, I knew. And Jared's family were the same way. They were like, she had a good job. Why would she quit that to go start something at ground zero?
Yeah.
And again, maybe if I had to do it over again, I maybe would have overlapped longer than what I did and kept my teaching job and ran my side hustle a little bit longer. But I think for me, it was like I needed to be drowning to jump out of the water faster. And to me, I had to take that security blanket away to really make my business jump up.
Yeah, I think these are some really good lessons. One, that if you have people that are like telling you, no, stay safe and don't make the jump, is you're 9 out of 10 times you are about to have a quantum leap.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
second, I think it's okay. I mean, I relate with you when you say you have to be in a sink or swim situation. Every time I've done a quantum leap, and another characteristic is like, I have to be drowning.
Yes.
Or I have to be, and the way I describe it is like when you're in like a entry level, my son played soccer for a little bit, entry level soccer, like grade 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, if you're decent at soccer, you're going to be fine. Everybody's fine. You play well, whatever.
Right.
And then when you jump up and you quantum leap to that next level, there's always going to be this gap that's really uncomfortable.
Yes.
Where you go to the next level soccer game or team, and then all of a sudden you're the crappiest out of all the team players, right? Same thing happened to me when I upgraded in my neighborhoods. I was like the newbie in the neighborhood. We are, my house is like 3 times the amount of where I was living before. I almost felt like not belonging or not good enough in the house that I live in. So that's kind of a characteristics you got to expect more of if you're going to make these kinds of jumps. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super scary, but it's like once you start doing it and you see how it works, you can tell somebody, hey, the next thing I'm going to do is this. And they're like, are you crazy? Nope. Because I know it's going to work. Like I just know it will because I believe in it. And now it's almost like a tool that you get to use to create this magical life, because all it takes is as soon as a conflict comes or a problem comes, you're like, ooh, what's in store, because I know this is happening for a reason and it's for me to go to the next level. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, try to stop the conflict or try to fix it. It's like, nope, this means it's time for a jump. It's time for a pivot. It's time to change it up a little bit and not resist it.
It's definitely an opportunity.
Yeah,
Every struggle is an opportunity.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I want to talk to you about something. One of the conversations that you and I had really actually stuck with me. We were talking about, and I wonder how this played out in how you were sort of coming out as a business owner and then later on sharing so much. And you have a big social media following. There are a lot of people that respect you. You have a lot of influence in this space. So I would imagine this is a big thing, especially at the beginning, but then even later on in your journey. So you and I were talking about, I don't know how it came up, but we were talking about, sharing parts of your story that has to do with your ex-husband, who happens to be the dad of your children, who you
Correct. Yeah.
love. Like, how do you, I would assume there would be some struggle in sharing parts of that story that puts him in the corner, because there's obvious reasons why we're divorced, right?
Right.
And, did you tiptoe around it at the beginning?
It's a great question. It's a great question. Yeah. I mean, somebody just asked me, my neighbor was asking me about my business, and I just moved here, so we're talking about that. And she said, hey, what's the first video you ever made? So it had me rethinking the start of my business. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom of my social media, be ready for some cringy videos. But in that point, when I was first starting, I was like, this is the father of my children. I can't, obviously tell direct stories. So at the beginning, I would say for the first probably year, I would say, hey, I had a client hey, I just had a consult with somebody. Hey, and I was sharing my own stories, but I was saying it from a third party perspective of, it was a client. And then there was just this day. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if I just I must have listened to personal development or listened to a podcast or something, to where I was just like, you know what? This is my story, and I have receipts for everything that I'm saying. And I need to heal, and I need to let some other mom know that this is me. Like, I have a face. This is my story. This is my journey. And I just ripped the Band-Aid off one day. And obviously I don't use his name, and I would never, blow his cover or anything like that. But I just started saying, this is what happened to me. I went through this journey. It's like when my business really took off. Like, I was doing okay, but when I started to be authentic and just tell my own story, everything changed. Now, I went to my children ahead of time and I said, hey, here's how mom's business is going to change. And at that time they were, higher teenage years. And they said, go for it. They said, this is your story. This is our story. We give you permission. And my kids, who are now 20 and 18, are part of my business. And they give coaching calls, and they're on with me, and they throw me under buses during those calls. And they say, Mom did not do it right. Mom did this wrong. Mom did this wrong. And Dad struggled with these skills. So I think it's just like, there was something about owning it and finally just saying, because a lot of it is embarrassing. I married a man after 60 days. I didn't get an education about divorce. I picked the wrong attorney. I did a lot of things wrong in my journey. I tried to be nice to a man that was abusing me verbally in public. I did a lot of things wrong. And I thought, instead of just throwing some other stranger Jane Doe under the bus, I want people to know it's me, and that's why my whole business is called The Ugly Truth, because the ugly truth of it was, I didn't do it right. And I think that's why I can teach it right now, is because I did it wrong for so long. But yeah, it was super scary. It was one of those things when I've been drugged through the court system over 300 times, and by him. And I was like, of all things, he has the ability to come after me for this too. And I just thought, even if he does, it's my story and I have receipts for everything I'm saying. So I'm not worried. And I just had to stop worrying about it and just go for it. But it was scary.
Yeah, that is scary. I mean, I have definitely held back from telling stories. Mine are not as horrific as yours, but you're right. At some point, you have to own your story. And I think no matter if you're listening to this and whether you want to share your story or not share your story, whether you have a business or don't have a business, I think everybody that's listening here is probably some level of entrepreneur or business owner. What fields you're in, if you're going to be a social media, it doesn't matter what you do. Even if you don't do anything, this part of owning the story and owning your truth, if this is actually something that did happen to me, because I think oftentimes a lot of people who are positive or have been in personal development. Like I did this for 10 years of my marriage, just trying to
Yeah.
bypass all of it. Like,
Right.
oh yeah, this is hurting me, but I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to do 3 hours of meditation so I can handle my
Right.
life, and not realizing that that's completely unhealthy to go through.
Yeah.
So to some degree, I think it's important to be like, yes, this did happen to me. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, these are the feelings that I experienced. Yes, I was betrayed. Yes, I was X, Y, and Z. And that becomes part of the healing journey. Now, in your case, it's a beautiful story because you've taken all of that and alchemized it in your life. And also
Right.
it shows up in your business directly. And
Right.
it seems like it was healing for you from a personal perspective too.
Well, I think the big difference is I'm not still in that story. So it's so easy to be the author and the narrator of it now because I'm healed from it. So it's a previous chapter which I can recall and pull out and read about it and put it back in the book and shut the book. I'm not still impacted by that story emotionally anymore. I'm healed. So I think if people, want to share their story, first and foremost, you have to realize no one's going to buy from you that doesn't like you. You have to get people to relate to you and be likable and relatable and all those things. But I'm not still that broken person. I'm not that scarred person anymore. I'm totally revamped and brand new. And so it's so much easier to tell the story now than it would be during it, as it was going in real time. So I think that's a big difference. And I think that's why I became completely clear and okay with sharing my story, because it was the past and it wasn't the current. And I would never allow that past life to jump into my, day-to-day life anymore. I have better boundaries than that. I'm secure now with who I am. And so I would never let that repeat itself ever again. So I think that's what makes it a lot easier to talk about.
Resolution is having the
Yeah.
resolution so that when you are share, especially if you're going to share on social media, is you want to know what the answer is because you're doing it as a service to helping
Right.
other people anyways. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think even if you're not sharing on social media, if it's something that's personal to you, is just claiming the problem and like
Yeah.
making, because I think in my case, I didn't need to share on social media, but there was a time, and it's more of a recent situation where I'm like, I do need to claim the fact that I was with a person that was a certain way and it hurt me in a certain way, and
Yes.
speak to it. And,
Yeah.
whether it's in therapy or to friends or later on as there is resolution on social media, if that's part of your journey.
Yeah. I think it like where I see it pop back in sometimes is my ex-husband used words to hurt me, degraded me with, you're a bad mom, you're a bad person, you're an alcoholic, you're this, you're that. And so name calling and degrading me, I can see how I have to practice self-fulfilling love all the time. I have to make sure I know my worth. I have to practice self-care all the time, because then when I'm in my comment section and someone gives me that same type of verbal abuse, from the trolls inside on social media, or a disgruntled customer or something like that, if I didn't have the ability to build myself up and know what I'm truly worth, and it doesn't rely upon outside validation, that could crush me all over again and send me spiraling right backwards. So I think that's one part of entrepreneurship, that when you have a sales product, not everybody's going to be 100% behind it. And you got to be ready for those comments and know your worth, and know everything, that this is just one person's opinion and all that, because that can pull you right back into an old cycle. And validation was a big thing for me. I needed words of affirmation as a child. I didn't necessarily get them as much as I would have liked to. And so I went and sought a narcissist who fed me all the lines, man. He made me believe that I was worthy of everything and then ripped the rug out from underneath me very quickly. So I think knowing my weakest point, I have to be fulfilling it all the time so I don't look for other people to fill it. Because if you're having a weak moment, you go into your comment section, man, you can get torn up really easily, really easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important fact to ponder and have awareness around, because oftentimes I feel we have these emotional addictions, whether it's seeking validation or not
Yeah.
enoughness and I'm not worthy of it. And they're always there. I can speak for myself, as it's not like it's gone away as I've worked
Yeah.
on myself and
Right.
healed, but you get to learn how to manage it and how to handle it. But oftentimes the comments in social media, like on one of the pages, or you talk to somebody, or you get denied of speaking
Yeah.
engagement or something like
Right.
that, immediately takes you back to that emotional addiction. And so we'll have to at some point learn, okay, first of all, this is an emotional addiction. This is not who I am. And
Yes.
second, once you recognize it, go, okay, I'm not going to use some person that I don't know who made a comment on me. I'm not going to use them to go back into exactly where I would have
Absolutely.
gone anyways. And
Absolutely. I wish someone would have told me early on in my entrepreneurship the roller coaster that you're on. I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes you're like, man, this is great. Look at the success. And then you have a rock bottom moment and then you go right back up. I mean, it is an up and down, because you're constantly second guessing yourself. Like, should I change products? Should I change momentum? Should I change this? And then sometimes you gotta let it ride. And I mean, it's a fun ride. It's just you gotta know yourself really well, and checks and balances with your team or with you personally on, no, leave it alone for a minute. If you still think the same in a couple days, when your mood changes, then we maybe can address it, but don't delete anything right now. Like, entrepreneurship is not for the faint at heart. I mean, you gotta show up every day for yourself,
Mhm.
not for anybody else, but just yourself. Like, you got to put stuff out there every day, showing up every day. Everybody's like, oh, you only work 3 days a week. Online, I work 7 days a week behind the scenes, but you see my face only 3 days a week, but every other day I'm working. Downtime is uptime for work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the hardest part. It's a great life, but it's a hard life. You got to work at it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So you shared a couple of times in your life where the big one you were talking about making the jump in entrepreneurship, going from teacher into building this business, tapping
Yeah.
into what it would be like to be an entrepreneur. The other, I would assume, would be like a big quantum leap was when you got your divorce or made the decision to participate in divorce and
Yeah.
whatnot. Now, are there in the more recent years, what's like an unreasonable decision that you made or a jump where it felt like that doesn't make sense, but I'm going to do it anyways? Or
Yeah. I
is
would say I would say two things. One, personally, would be having two kids at the age of 40 and 41. I'm 46. I already
yeah,
had my two kids. My kids were teenagers, and taking that leap of, am I going to start this all over again?
I
Like,
know.
we have kids that can stay home alone, and we're going to go back to a diaper bag. Like, what am I thinking? I would say that one. And then, professionally, it was hiring a team. Finally stopped being a one-man show and hired the team. And that was probably one of the scariest moments ever of, am I really going to pay someone to do something I already know how to do?
Mm-hmm.
But I know if I can free up some time, my business could grow. And really
Mm-hmm.
just, I mean, it comes down to self-worth again. Like, am I worthy enough to have time back and pay someone to do the things that I don't want to do so that I can do the things that I want to do? Building my team, I'll never forget the first person I hired. It was one of the scariest. I mean, building a website, I was doing that. Emails, I was doing that. Videos, I was doing all of it for years. And then I was finally like, girlfriend, hire a team. And then now we have 6 people, and I would have never, that was that was probably one of the scariest things once my business was going, was to bring on a team, people that rely upon me for income.
Mm-hmm.
Their livelihood is on me, like that was a big deal, a huge deal. I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking about that. I mean, I was like, Jared, are we really going to hire someone? He's like, we need to, it's growing, and I'm like, but I know how to do that. He's like, yeah, but you're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning. You need to sleep. Like, you need to hire it done. So those were the two, I think, most recently, just like, are we doing this? Let's go for it.
Yeah, and when you do make those jumps, it's I think especially when you hire a team, there's a level of accountability that you need
Mm-hmm.
to have. Like, I mean, I used to work with 13 people. I have a team of 6 now. But when I have my team meetings on Zoom, I actually have to prepare versus when I'm
Yes.
solo, you kind of do your thing and you fit it in whenever you want to. And while there is structure on day-to-day basis, especially in a virtual business, you that team meeting every week, it's like, oh, I got to know what everybody's doing, I got to know what's
Yes.
happening, what's coming up, what to look
Yeah.
out for. So it kind of gives you a level of accountability, but
Wow.
also
Well,
it is scary because you're spending money on aside from being responsible for their livelihood, you're also
yeah.
spending money that you're thinking, okay, how's this going to have an ROI? Because it's usually not
Right.
direct, it's usually an
Right.
energetic space that you've opened up, and then therefore your team gets to run with it. And then now
Right.
you have a vacuum for which you can be more creative. You can create
Right.
more. You can come up with better ideas.
Yeah. And so that led to probably the other quantum leap, which was getting Jared to quit his job, to stay home and be a
Mm,
stay-at-home dad. That was, again, baby boomers didn't like that. You're going to A, have the woman be the one making the money. B, this man is going to stay at home and take care of the house and the kids, but what we saw was what he was making I could make quickly. What he was doing was working 40 hours a week and being gone from his 2 boys. And he was like, I don't want a life like that. I grew up that way where my dad worked full time. He goes, if I can be home being the one to teach them everything and be there for when they get home from school, he goes, my dad was never there when I got off the school bus. I want to be there. So it was that, are we really doing this? Everyone in our camp was like, you're crazy. You're crazy. Both people need to work in this economy, but nobody really knew the numbers. We did. And so making that jump, and even still when we introduce and people are like, what do you do for a living? And he's like, I'm a stay-at-home dad. They're like, how the hell are you pulling that off? And it's being an entrepreneur, and running your own business. So that was another big scary thing. Like, are we going to do this? And the math just was in our favor. And it was like, let's try it. You can always go back to work, but let's just try it, because the greater good was to be home with the boys, and which allowed me to, again, like, I'm not in the trenches with the kids. He is, and I get to be creative and work with the team and build and build and build and give us the life that we have. So it was just, everybody around us was like, you are crazy. You're crazy.
That's how next time anybody listening to this, if people are telling you that that's what you're about to do is crazy, and I've done a ton of those, then there you go. You're about to unleash your unreasonable lifestyle next, coming up, right?
Exactly.
I don't think anything worthy, anything juicy is going to come with ease and
approval.
And approval. Thank you. I think this is a theme for this episode here.
Right.
And
I think
you kind of took a step outside the box, and you're like, well, we're gonna have him stay home, and I'm gonna work, and it's outside the box. It's not traditional. And guess what? You have untraditional results. You have outside the box results.
Exactly. And it's all been, we've asked our parents who we look up to and we idolize. They're great people, but they're from a generation where we're breaking the mold on traditions, and so it's just a lot of Jared and I talking like, let's try it. We are so from the mindset of like, worst that happens is it fails. We know what that feels like, and we'll rebuild it. We'll fix it. We'll pivot. We'll change it up a little bit. And just having a partner that sees that, he sees that this business, I can create anything and I can make it work. Like, it's phenomenal. And I wish more people tapped into it. And I didn't believe in myself 100%. That man did more than me. My husband believed in me so much more than I did, but it was enough to carry over into me where I was like, okay, well, if you believe this, then let's go for it. And thank God he did that. Thank God he pushed me and said, you should start teaching adults. Cause I would have never thought of that. I would have been like, just keep helping people on the side with their divorce and make crumbs on it. And now, it keeps him at home. So yeah, it has been, now that you're pointing that out, every time we've jumped really far ahead, it's all with everybody going, stop signs. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's dangerous. That's crazy. And it's worked out every single time. But so many people don't. You get met with resistance and people are like, oh, I guess it does sound crazy. I'm going to shut down. And I don't think anybody that's thought of really crazy ideas listen to the crowd. And we're just not ones that listen to the crowd at all. We just go for it.
Absolutely. And I love capturing those stories that are just seems unreasonable, totally outside the box. People generally would reject it, right? Whether publicly, if they're close enough to you, they would definitely bring it up. And if they're not close enough to you, then they're talking about it while you're making the wrong decisions and the choices. A lot of my life is like that and has been. And at this point, if I don't have the rejection of people around me, then I know I'm not making the right choice, as the jump is just not big enough, is not really worthy enough.
Well, we have family that like, we're into like energy, and what our mindset is on is what we will achieve. And so they're like, how did you start really making the money you make? And we're like, we just told ourselves this is how much we were going to make every day. Yeah. And they're like, no, but what did you really do? And I'm like, I literally put a number in my head, thought about it every day, and now my business makes that much money. Like, it's literally how easy it is. Like, all of my focus was not on the woe is me, this might not. It was all like, my business will bring in X amount of dollars per day.
Done.
Because there's money out there. Done. And so the baby boomers are like, no. What's the real thing you did? And I'm like, I thought about it and it happened.
You're like drugs. Okay, fine. The drugs.
Yeah. But I think that's been a big part of my journey is constantly, if I start to have negative thoughts myself, which is rare, I got to jump into personal development. I got to jump into energy work. I got to jump into manifestation. I got to jump into a list of things that are my goals, gratitude and all that stuff. Cause then it's just like, I can't let that creep in because I know energy work will affect my business. So I have to stay focused on positivity all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have one other question that I wasn't planning on asking, but it came up, and not that I was planning any of the other questions, but since you brought it up, your husband is a stay-at-home dad. You're the
Yes.
breadwinner to the
Yes.
family.
Hmm.
That's an interesting dynamic. It's a
Very.
dynamic I'm very familiar with. It's the one that probably broke my marriage, although my marriage wasn't great to start with. And in my relationship now, I'm engaged to be married. It seems like that's the case also.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges in that dynamic?
Mhm.
I'm familiar with them, but also how do you overcome? It seems like you work well together, you have really good communication, all of those, but I would assume there's stuff that might still pop up because of the
Absolutely.
dynamic.
Absolutely. I think first and foremost, it's being able to talk without taking things personally. Like you have to be able to express like what I see and what he sees are two different things. You know, if I leave this room, this is my office, and I leave, I'm going out into his territory, which is the rest of the house. And his job is the house and my job is in here. And so I think it's being able to communicate in a way that you don't take things personally. If I walk out, I'm like, "What'd you do today?" That he's gonna be like, "Are you kidding me? Like I did this, this, and this, but what I see might not be what he did." So I think being very conscious about how you communicate with your person is number one. But number two, I involve him so much into my business. We shower together every single night. I wait on him, he waits on me, and that's our time together. And I'm telling about the work day and podcasts I'm gonna be on and people that I interviewed today or people that I had as clients. And that way he hears what I went through for the day. And then he tells me what he went through for the day. But he has to have his own thing. And I think, if me coming in and talking about work is my thing, because I get so excited, he has to have something that he's so excited about. Now, I know he's not excited about taking care of the boys and, the housework and stuff like that, which we do have a cleaning lady. So that he doesn't have to he's not on his hands and knees. Don't get it twisted. But he
Mhm.
has to get all the school stuff ready and the boys ready and the yard work and things like that. He knows more. So he has his hobbies that's where he's at right now today. He's going out and doing his hobbies. So he has his things that he gets to come back and be super excited about and share about. I think when we had problems, it was when he didn't have enough in his world
Mhm.
going on. And I had all this going on in my world. And I'm just like, da 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 da. Now, what do you got? And he's like, I switched laundry around. I'm like, oh, we got it. We got to get you to something. And now he has all of his own things. So now I'm excited to talk. He's excited to talk. We have things to talk about that aren't the mundane things. It's keeping it fresh and keeping it interesting, but it's open communication, man, because we're in the same building all the time. We're on top of each other all the time. And so I think just that it's the open communication. And sometimes I'll take stuff personally and then it's like, okay, re-listen to that. That's not even anywhere close to what he said. And same thing, he does that too. He'll hear what he wants to hear sometimes because maybe he's going through something, but then when we talk it out, he's like, oh, well, you didn't mean that. I'm like, no, you heard it a completely different way.
Mhm.
So I think it's communicating. When you start to shut down and not talk about the things that are resenting you, like I'm going to be honest. There's this one time I kept walking out day after day and just stuff wasn't tidied up. And I'm very like organized person. So
Mhm.
when I walk out and it's not tidied up, I feel like I still have to keep working. Like
Mhm.
now I have to go pick up the house because you didn't pick up the house. And I did it like 3 days in a row. And finally I just blew up. And he's like, well, why didn't you just tell me? And I'm like, I think it would be obvious. Like, I want that. And he's like, my perspective and expectations were different than yours. If you want to walk out of that office with a spick and span countertop, tell me that. And ever since I told him that, you can hear him out there at 3 o'clock when I'm getting ready to get off work. He's cleaning everything off and it's clean. So it was just a lack of communication about expectations.
Yeah.
This is what I expected. And I'll get to it later he's very good at just, I'll get to it. And I have to accept that at his pace, he will. It's just not at my pace. So I think it's just really communicating about expectations, but you got to have something spicy going on in your own day to be able to talk about. You really do. But money, I mean, we share all of our money and money's not ever an object. I'm building his retirement. I'm building my own. Like money's never been an argument. It's more the job titles of like expectations has been a problem, but now it's all worked out. So now it's
And
good.
I think that's usually the case anyways. The money just happens to be the surface conversation when the woman is the breadwinner, but underneath it all, it's this um I'll add to what you're saying instead of repeating it because I agree with everything that you're saying. But I also think from I used to work in my practice, and then I would come home, and so you have to be the boss, and you're so much in your masculine energy, and you're driving
Yeah.
everybody around.
Oh,
You
I'm
do
so glad
this,
you said that.
right? You do this, and you do that, and why didn't you do that? And how come you didn't do this? I mean, I had 13 people I was managing in one private practice. and I'm the head of everybody else. And even now,
Right.
like being the CEO of my company or dealing with other individuals, men and women, in investments or in different things that I'm doing. And so you always have to carry a certain kind
Yeah.
of energy, and it happens to be very masculine because it's do, do,
Agreed.
do, do. And then you show up at home, and I've had to learn. I have to say, I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job with this one, and I think my fiance would agree. But I have learned how to switch into the feminine energy
Mm-hmm.
when I'm with him. And sometimes oftentimes it takes a minute. It takes more
Yes.
than a minute to be able to switch off, transition in, take a shower, get it off, do a meditation, whatever it takes. But I'm unwilling to hang out with my husband, with my fiance, until I have made that switch. Sometimes I'll be leaving the office and I will not have a conversation in the office. I'll have to like walk out, change my geography, shift my energy, and get into that feminine energy, which is innately who I am anyways, to have a better dynamic that's more integrated and sexier, flirtier, and all of those
I'm going to
things.
steal every bit of that to describe that to him because, I'm out there like, stop asking me questions. I just spent all day answering questions all day long, like take charge, be the man. And I think that's, I want him to dominate and literally not to get too explosive in here, but I am so dominating in my business that I
Yeah.
want to be dominated out there. I want to be told, sit down, eat dinner.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Like sit down, put your feet up. All right. Hey, get in the car. We're going out to eat. Okay. Like just dominate the conversation for me and tell me where I need to walk over and do. And, hey, can you put the kids to bed? Sure. Like to be asked another question after I've done that for everybody all day long, but I do. It is that. And since we've moved down here, I really have tried to tap into my feminine energy for myself. But
Mhm.
as you're wording that, I really see how that could benefit and communicate that to him. Like, I want to feel more feminine and you lead out here. Let
Mhm.
me lead in the office, but you lead out there. And we've talked about that before, but it needs to be touched on. But yeah, I do. I want to be flirty and girly, and I do catch myself answering business stuff, and he hears me talk, and he's like, "Geez, because I go into business mode, I go into masculine. But then I'm like, okay, back over to girly mode over here. So that's a really good way to describe it. But if you don't have that, if you try to bring your masculine into the marriage, whoo.
No, the attraction's out the door, and yeah,
I'm nobody's mother. I'm not going to be attracted to you if I'm taking charge of you. I've had
no, yeah,
relationships like that before. And it's like, come on, step up.
yeah,
Um, I really love that. I think if anybody, because this is new territory for us too,
yeah.
me being the breadwinner, it just amazing. I'm married to a unicorn. I know I am. The man is he's not obviously what I was married to the first time. He's just into making life better with me. And if that means work on something, he'll work on it. If that means less than, more of, more of. He's just very adaptable to making, because he knows it's seasonal.
Mhm.
It's seasonal of what I need right now. And then it's going to change what we need later. And then maybe the kids will need a little bit more or less, because it all takes communication though, to be talking about it all the time and not just go dormant. I think that's where a lot of the marriages that I see fail. I'm like, when's the last time you talked about this? 2020. And I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, we're talking about this shit every 3 months. We're making sure we're on the same page seasonally. Like you got to keep talking, and people don't. They shut down, and that's when the problems just really start.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we can go on a whole nother episode just
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about the energy of the masculine and the feminine,
Yes.
and being the CEO of a company and the breadwinner and whatever. All this entire dynamic
Absolutely.
deserves its own conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to do that.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much. I would love people to get in touch with you, as I've shared this with you before, but as I share more and more about my divorce, my story, and what I've
hmm
gone through and where I'm at now, I've had so many women reach out to me around, how did you do it? I'm thinking about
Yeah.
it. Or I'm in the process of, or I'm with a narcissist, or I'm with a
Yes.
really nice guy and I'm just unhappy, and the
Yeah.
spectrum in between. So I know that you can help them. And even if you're not looking for divorce and you're in a great relationship, I think Samantha is great inspiration.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
thank you.
highly recommend that people, at least very bare minimum, follow you on social media. But where can they get more information about you?
Yeah, I am everywhere on social media, and you can either do samanthaboss.com, or you can do The Ugly Truth of Divorce, which I think is very catching and easy to remember, because I'm just a straight shooter. I'm not going to tell you the fluffy things. I'm going to tell you the things that are really important to remember. Even if you're getting along, and having a great divorce, and it's copacetic, and that's great and it's amicable, things can go sideways very quickly right after your divorce. So I'd rather you be overprepared than underprepared. And if you're overprepared, you'll never use it. If you're not prepared, you're going to be searching for me. So I'd rather you just come in open-minded to be like, this might not apply to me now, but it might apply to me later. And
Mhm.
I'd rather be well-equipped and not be the one trying to learn as we go. You want to be well-educated before you jump into it, or right at the beginning. So yeah, just go to samanthaboss.com or The Ugly Truth of Divorce on any of the platforms. You'll find my face and watch my videos. And I give, free stuff. I have paid stuff. So there's something out there for everybody to take advantage of.
Yeah, I know you do workshops on monthly basis. There's so many
Mhm.
resources that
Absolutely.
you can get in touch with. But if you're listening to this in your car or you're on the go, all the links are in the show notes, so you'll have access to them. Thank you again for giving me this time. It's definitely a juicy conversation for me. Learned a lot and learned a lot about you also, which I appreciate. And I'll see you around. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. And make sure that you tune in to the next episode. Thank you for tuning into the Unreasonable Life Podcast. I hope that today's episode has inspired you to dream bigger, act bolder, and step into your own version of an unreasonable dream life. If you loved what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who's ready to take their next bold leap. And I'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you. You can follow me on Instagram and share your biggest takeaways from today's episode. And remember, the life that you want isn't unreachable. It's just unreasonable. Until next time, keep challenging the status quo, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Unreasonable Life Podcast.